Hello, Jeff Disher here again. Today I'm going to do a demo of the new cloud storage synchronization app that has been released on SourceForge recently. And this allows you to synchronize the state of a directory of files on a computer or multiple computers to a OpenAutonomy Cloud Storage instance. And then once the files are there, they of course can be used by any of the other OpenAutonomy applications. So I'm going to be starting out again on the demo server, the one that's running on the Raspberry Pi. And I've already logged in here as a user that has the usual set of applications. As you can see, there's nothing, this is fairly clean to the initial state. Also, the storage system is empty, set to the default 256 megs. So how I'm going to do this is, first of all, we're going to be creating an instance of something that actually runs on a local computer. So that means it's not going to be a web app, which means that we need to use one of the pre-trusted application tokens. So first, I'll just call this master. So I'm actually going to use a few of these. And first thing I need to do is also set it to maximum trust, because this is going to be used, because it's going to try and interact with the storage system. If it has less trust than that, the storage system will reject attempts to communicate. And what I'm going to do is, if you look at the SourceForge project, it's really kind of bootstrapped by a handful of shell scripts, and that just makes it clearer to see what all the arguments are, what everything's doing. But it's otherwise it's distributed in various ways. The one I'm going to be using is the sync static jar. So it's just a single Java application with all the dependencies packaged together. It's just over a meg. So I'm going to populate this with the configuration options. So first of all, the trust token that I copied, because that's how we start. Also, I'm going to copy the identity URL because it needs to know who I am. The storage URL because it needs to know which one of my storage applications to talk to, because I could have several. And local path, I'm just going to call it, I'll have it synchronize a directory called root, which is just going to be, in this case, because it's a relative path, it'll just create it relative to where I invoke it the first time. And we'll make a remote path, we'll call it something like sync test, just so it's obvious that it's happening. Sync mode is actually, there's several different options for this. They're described in some of the usage, the help text that comes out of the usage when you run the program without any arguments, or in the code as well, but there's going to be more documentation coming forward about that to explain how everything works. But for now, what I'm going to use is a mode called sync master, which basically means changes locally and remotely will both be considered correct, except if they conflict with each other, the local copy, the one that's running on the computer, will be considered the correct answer. Security group, public is usually the right answer, just because no one can discover the files unless you give them the URL anyway. This just allows me to use things like the photo sharing application, for example, with the files that I put in here. So that's now set up. Now this is in the master directory, which is where this one is. So just to kind of give you a quick demo of what's here, it's generally empty. Just got master, there's nothing in this directory except for just the 3 shell scripts that describe what's going on. So the first time you run it, I'm going to run this as start. And what this will do is it bootstraps the VM, tells me the configuration, and starts everything up. And of course here it's saying that, okay, it did a remote create directory. So if we go over here and do a refresh, and you can see, yeah, there's now sync test and it's empty. So fine. Let's try putting some files in this. So I've just got a directory that's got a bunch of pictures in it. So let's copy that. See, this root directory has been created now. So I'll just copy those in there. So now you can see locally I've got this directory full of pictures. This config is where, this is what it updates every time it runs, that actually stores the information that it needs to know. So it doesn't actually touch the files locally, and it doesn't change the directories locally. It just keeps this file that describes what it's been doing. So now if I go back to the, back here, what I need to do is the first time you run it, you run start. Any time after that, just run ongoing. Because now it's assuming that it's already created all the information, it's already registered the application, it knows how to do everything, and it's done some initial work. So it does this the first time. So here it's actually going through and it's putting out information about what it's actually creating. So you can see, if you actually look carefully, these things, this means that they're starting, this means that they're ending. So you can see that it's actually interleaving the operations. In the current way it's configured, it's running up to 3, I believe, tasks at once. And while normally it wouldn't make it any better if you were just uploading or downloading several things at once, because you still have the same internet connection that you're running them all over, because of things like just internet latency, RPC overhead, stuff like that, it usually actually does improve performance a bit to run a few things at once. So it'll do that. And it makes sure that internally it'll make sure that they're all running in the right order, such that you don't try and do something like upload a file before you've created the directory to put it in, anything like that. So it should just work. So now if we go over here, yes, this has already done the refresh because it now refreshes the UI every minute. And you can see that, yeah, everything that I've uploaded is here. There's actually options to make it ignore things that start with dot. Again, there'll be more in documentation coming forward, which is helpful in cases like DS Store from an OS X system. But these are all here, and they're all the normal pictures, just as though they were uploaded by you directly or uploaded by any of the other utilities. So I could have other applications create this for me if I wanted. Now, just as a quick demo of what this will do, because it's in the sync, it's in that simple mode that I'd set up before, saying that, oh, it's just going to be sync master. So since I haven't changed anything on either side, if I try resyncing it again, right now, it's not really going to do very much, because it's going to assume that whatever's happening on both sides actually looks pretty much like what it left it is. See? Nothing happened. So now what I'll do is I'll actually delete some things from the other side. Now this isn't going to be a conflict. See, so those are gone. And you can see, if we look at the root that we've actually got locally, it's got these 4 photos in it. Now if I run it again, it will delete those locally. And this is because they changed remotely and nothing changed locally. So it's not a conflict. So here you can see it actually does local delete of those 2 things that I'd selected. And they're gone here. So that's one way that you can do this as a kind of incrementally online backup, which is the only kind of cloud service that kind of makes sense for everyone out of the box. Everybody always needs offsite backups. This also gives you a way to share any of the data that you're putting there, because you can just send someone a URL. Once these are put here, these are real links, right? Like I can copy this link and give it to somebody else, and now they have access to this photo. Or I can put them together using an OpenAutonomy photo sharing app or any other OpenAutonomy application. And of course, it doesn't require, because it's OpenAutonomy, it doesn't require they're all running on the same system. These could be hosted anywhere. So now I'll show you something interesting that you can also do with this is there's no reason why I'm limited to only connecting one system to this. Say I've got multiple computers and I actually want to keep all the data in sync. Or maybe one of them is always the correct answer. I just want it to be flushing data to a backup, and all my other computers just consume that data. So you're running like a data center, or you have a bunch of devices in your house that you take with you somewhere, like their laptops or phones or something, but you never actually want to make changes there. You just need the data backed up there in case you need to access it. So in that case, you might want to have multiple, and you can use the different synchronization mode settings to get the right behavior that you want for that environment. So what I'm going to do, just to kind of show how this would work if you had multiple machines, is I'm going to create another application. I'll call this one slave. There's a bit of a bug here now, it regenerates that next to the other one, but that is not an issue for now. So I'll copy that, the token it created. Again, I'm going to set this to maximum trust, because otherwise the storage system will ignore it. And what I'll do here is, I've got this other directory that I've just put the shell scripts in but haven't done anything with them. So I'm going to open this, because again, the ongoing, as you can see, is empty, because it knows how to get everything it needs out of the config file that's created the first time you run it. And so here I've got another empty start file. So I'll just copy, actually I'm going to copy over most of the config from the other one, just because I'm attaching to the same application. And because this is a relative path again, the root will refer to a different root, because this stuff's in a different directory. I'm going to change the sync mode to make it sync slave. I'm not going to go into too much detail about the how it reconciles those conflicts, but it's another one of the options. And sync master and sync slave are sort of obvious useful ones. Of course, there's the other master and slave modes, which are for specifically wanting to say that only one machine is ever correct and it never changes when it connects. So those are useful for different purposes depending on what you're doing. But sync master and sync slave are generally pretty obviously useful ones. All right, so I'll go over here. I'm now in the slave directory, and of course there's nothing here other than those shell scripts. So I'll run start. And now this will go to the other side, and it'll create anything it needs to locally. So you can see now it's actually doing the same thing. It's connecting to the other side, and it's downloaded all the files that I had over there. Now, yes, these are just on the same system, but it's going to work the same way. Nothing here is assuming that these are on the same system. You see it's got the copies here. So if I run, say, ongoing again over here, we haven't changed anything anywhere, so this again shouldn't do much. Yep, nothing happened. And we'll run it on this side. Oh, it complains because I ran start again, which it makes sure that you don't do that because I've got the config file there. So run ongoing, and yes, it does nothing again. So in this case, I can start doing things like, say I want to add, say we go over here and just create another test directory, and inside that we actually create another nested one, and just for fun, let's actually copy the config file itself, just because it's something else I have nearby. Now I can't move it or delete it because then I'll have to start over because that's how it remembers what it's doing. So now that that's in place, run ongoing again. And you can see here, okay, it's actually created a bunch of remote directories and uploaded the file. You can see also what happens here is that it tags them after it uploads them. That's how it can tell if they change on one side or the other. And again, over here, we'll run ongoing again, and we'll see it actually synchronize down on this side, creating the local directories and downloading the file. So now this is in both directories and on the storage system. So again, this is something, I'll just do the refresh so it shows up. Yep, so there's the test directory and sync test. It's got nested, which has the config file in it. So 940 bytes. Now, of course, once these are here, you can go further and start doing things like, for example, kind of the photo sharing mode that I'd shown before. I'm not going to go into detail because there's already a talk about it, but just to show you that these actually do work. I can go in here and it'll start generating the thumbnails for these because there's nothing special about this. Now that I've done the uploads, everything's just there. So these are there. They can be put into images just like or put into albums just like any other photos that have been uploaded. And also, say I decided to upload, okay, just for fun, I'll upload this, just because it's a file that I've got handy. All right, so that's been uploaded there. So it's in sync test, you can see. And what I can do now is, if I run this on these sides, it'll actually download that as well, because it'll see that as a change that's actually happened. So it means that you can change this on any side. See, download it here. And if we go back to the listing here, yeah, you can see it's actually downloaded it into the root directory I've created here. So this is kind of an example of one of the things you can do by combining the OpenAutonomy storage, but also being able to connect multiple applications together. This isn't special. These are just tokens like anything else. In fact, this has an advantage over a lot of other sync clients that have you get a device and you have to put in your credentials, your username and password, things like that into them. And then what happens if someone steals the device? Well, now they've got access to this information. Because they have your credentials, they look like you, and you can't do anything about it unless you go and change your password everywhere or something like that. But through OpenAutonomy, if I wanted to stop using one of these, or say one of these, if it was on a machine that I wasn't using anymore, or that I just wanted to revoke access to, say it was sold or given to somebody else in a company maybe, you can just delete the application, and now it'll refuse to synchronize. So that's just a quick example of what can be done with this. And as I mentioned, it is purely open source. All the OpenAutonomy code in it is MIT licensed. It's all available on sourceforge.net. So you can get that through the OpenAutonomy site. There's a link on the main page to the SourceForge projects. And that's one of them that has been added recently. So it's still fairly new, but it does work. Be sure to let me know if there's any problems with it. Send a, open a bug or leave some sort of comment there, or even here, or send me an email. Again, I'm jeff.disher@openautonomy.com. So send me a message there if you want to contact me about anything else. And let me know what you think. Thanks. Bye.